Cesaria. This is Spider Bite of Siege Perilous, and you're listening to the UORadio TalkShow, number 34, today on April 23rd, 2006. This is your opportunity to share your questions, your comments, your opinions about the happenings on Ultima Online amongst the community and in-game. Let's go ahead and introduce our panel today. Let me bring up my list of people we have in here. Let's go ahead and start out with Viceroy. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Viceroy.
All right, thank you for having me here with you today, and it's great. Just kind of waking up a little bit later than I normally do, and so I'm still kind of fuzzy, but I've been drinking on that tea, and I think I'm getting there.
Alex, go ahead. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, Alex, and I play a Great Lake Shark.
Thanks, Alex. We also have Joe Pam, our news manager here on UORadio. Go ahead, Joe Pam.
Hi guys. I'm from primarily Lake Superior, and like Spider said, I'm the news manager here.
She plays every shard all day long, simultaneously. I'm just kidding. And we have a special guest today. We have Sarah Swift. People will know her as a reporter over on Stratix. And have been trying to get him in here for quite some time. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what your primary shard is, and whatever else you'd like to say.
Hey everybody, I play mostly on Castle Shard. Actually, well, exclusively on the Castle Shard. I roleplay over there and just...
We're glad to have you. We're glad to have you. That's for sure. Been looking forward to getting in here for a while now. Okay, got a lot of stuff to talk about. Unlike last week, where there was very little going on, this week there have been a lot of stuff. You know, we got Emu, the Crone. We've got all kinds of stuff happening on UO to discuss about. One of the big topics, though, that I wanted to talk about, and I know Viceroy was interested in too, is about the advertising. What is going on with the advertising? Why doesn't UO advertise? Why is the effort not put out there about it? There is no online advertising. Although Darkscribe says there is, I don't see any of it other than on broker sites. I don't see it on Amazon. I don't see it anywhere. Just wondering if anybody on our panel had any opinions on that, and maybe what is the reasoning for that. Viceroy, go ahead.
Actually, I don't think you see him anywhere as of yet, and I don't think he was trying to suggest that they were currently advertising the game as of right now, because as of right now, to my understanding, they're probably advertising maybe on EA.com or something like that, if anything at all. Probably Samurai Empire still. But, the whole thing about the whole advertisement aspect and everything, in the 5 for Friday and everything, he actually mentioned some of the upcoming plans to address advertising, because a lot of players keep asking, well, what are your plans to do to get the word out there to the people that Ultima Online actually exists and everything, or maybe just to let people know that we're still out here. His response to that was that in about next fiscal quarter is how he worded it, that they was going to be advertising Ultima Online, or they had some plans to advertise it, and they said pretty much, TV advertisements pretty much out of the question, because it's just not the audience and what they're trying to target, because, it's just a lot of wasted dollars for little, for very little in return, and so, they're ideally, targeting places like GameSpot, IGM, and various, MMOG, dedicated sites, such as Stratix and everything and stuff like that. So, that's where they're pretty much concentrating their advertisements through and stuff, if you're wondering where they're targeting. But, the interesting is this. the next fiscal quarter actually starts in July, as some of you might very well know. And the interesting thing about that is, what will we, and this is what he says, what will we be advertising? Ask me in about 2 months. And so what does that mean to me? I mean, I'm just speculating now. But my guess, if there's anything to advertise in 2 months from now, it's probably going to be expansion, and here's why. Because, I mean, if you think about it, what would they be, gearing up marketing and advertisement for unless it was some kind of expansion coming out in 2 months? Also, we're almost a year from the date in which they announced UOML, and so with that in mind, I mean, because if you remember, we here at UO Radio were actually at the UO Town Hall meeting in Washington, D.C. on June 2nd, 2005, announcing the details of UOML. Yes, that's correct. It wasn't available for purchase as of that day, but it was a few months after that in which it was available. So my guess is that they have a lot of people working on expansion, because, I mean, if you also think about it, there's a lot of people coming into the art department. They're bringing a lot of artists back into the art department. If you've been reading U-Haul and everything, you would have known about that. Also, most of these artists, which they're bringing back, are, old artists that worked on Yo Samurai Empire, to my understanding, is what I've heard. So, I'm taking the combination of, them bringing back artists, and also that Darkscribe alludes to something big probably going to occur in the next 2 months with regards to advertisements. So that leads me to believe that there's an expansion in the works that we don't quite yet know about. So I'm kind of curious, as if anybody else here with those two things in mind might possibly think it's an expansion as well. Am I the only one who thinks that it's a possibility?
I certainly hope not. I know that's kind of blunt, but there are so many other things in the game that need to be worked on first before we go pumping out another expansion and landing all this code on top of everything that people are begging to have fixed. I mean, if you just look at some of the 5-on-5s or the U-Haul, I don't know. To be honest, I hope there isn't an expansion. But you're right, though. It does smell like it. That's for sure. Go ahead, Vice.
Well, yeah, it definitely smells like it, and I know a lot of people are not exactly thrilled about an expansion because of the simple fact that we got so many bugs that we've still got to work through and everything, and we got so many problems that need to be addressed, such as the economy. We got crafting that needs to be addressed. We need PvP addressed. We need items addressed. The properties on them, because currently it's just not a feasible option or quite feasible. I mean, you can go out there and still play the game, but is it enjoyable to actually sit there and calculate all the different variable properties and stuff like that? No. So, it definitely smells like it, if you ask me, because why else would they bring back the old art team from Yo Samurai Empire? And so my only guess is that. And they have a lot of different teams working on many various different tasks and projects around Ultima Online, and my guess is this is probably one of them,
Yeah, I agree. Publishers are the way to make quick money. I mean, the bottom line is $30 a pop from 100,000 people. Half those inactive, half of them active. That's a lot of money. And it pumps up the UO revenue. It's a good thing for the company and for the game because it keeps it live, it keeps the servers running. But still, another publish versus making the existing players happy. And the fact that we go back to advertising. How come ML never got advertised? It was splashed on the front page of UO. I think I saw it on IGN once, and it was a pop-up ad. That was it. No advertising. It's all word of mouth. In my opinion, it's all word of mouth. So I think UO is a great game, and I recommend my friends to it. I do. I love the in-depthness of it. But nowadays, I wind up recommending it more to people who have tried it years ago, and or more so, I'm winding up bringing people from shard to shard. That's all there is to it. I'm either bringing people from other shards to Sonoma, or I'm bringing people from Sonoma to Siege. You know, there is no outside. You can't tell somebody to play a 2D game anymore. People like the Empires games from Microsoft, and that is about as close to UO as you get. Viceroy, go ahead. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely kind of getting more challenging to, bring in your friends, because, most of your friends that you know of, because, EA's relying heavily on word of mouth, but, a lot of people are saying, well, my friends already know about the game. My friends have already tried the game, and they either loved the game or they didn't love the game and they quit the game. So what do you tell your friends who have quit the game or once played the game? How do you get those people to come back if they left the game not liking the game? Because, if nothing's quite changed, really, because I actually, as a matter of fact, we actually had somebody come into the UORadio channel yesterday, and they were like, well, are we still playing with the Ages of Shadow item properties? And we was like, yeah, we're still playing the game with item properties. And immediately after that, he left, and he was, that must have turned him off. So, I can tell you honestly, item properties is not what I actually, enjoy, nor what I expect anybody else new coming into the game to enjoy either. Because, if I'm not even enjoying it, how can I possibly sit there and expect any of my friends to enjoy item properties or anything of that nature? Because, I'm going off the subject here a little bit, and here's why. Because, I honestly believe that whenever you take item properties, because as you know, we are doing a revamp of, proficiencies to try to address the PvP issues, to try to restore some kind of sense of balance, and we're trying, all kinds of different things, and none of them quite worked out, and they've constantly been revising it for the last couple of months now, and there's still not quite a feasible solution that addresses everything that needs to be addressed with regards to a balance for PvP. And then you have to ask, well, is this revamp going to also address PvM? And it's just a whole can of worms. It's a mess. So here's my argument to item properties. I personally would love to see it removed, and here's why. Anybody who once played the game prior to AOS, who's thinking about coming back to the game, they don't want to come back to the game to a whole new system where they have to learn some kind of sophisticated combat system and properties and everything else, proficiencies. How are they going to know about all that unless they read up on all that? And let's face it, reading up on all that kind of stuff is not an easy task. Because first of all, you got to find out where to go find this document that tells you all about proficiencies and everything. Are you going to find it on UO.com? More than likely not. Are you going to find it on Stratix? More than likely not. So, how are you going to know about all these different proficiencies, properties, and everything else? How are you going to fully grasp the concept as a new player or a returning player who played prior to AOS? How are you going to get those people to come back into the game? It's going to be one hell of a challenge to get them to come back and stick around. So, for the sake of new players, returning players, prior to AOS and everything, and for the sake of the current players, I think it's one of those moves, or one of those things that, EA is just going to have to bite the bullet and say, we honestly, where they're going to have to say, we made a mistake, and we want to make it right, and we want to remove item properties. A lot of people are going to kick their feet and scream and everything else. But the way at this point, the way I look at it, regardless of what path or choice they go with, people are going to be kicking and screaming regardless. I mean, hell, you already got people quitting the game before they've even seen the changes with proficiencies and everything else. So, I mean, if people are going to be upset and everything and quit the game already, I think it's just one of those things that's going to, upset people regardless of what decision they go with. So why not do the right thing and just simply remove item properties? Anyhow, that's my rant.
Actually, it's my rant too. It has been for ages now. Get rid of the item properties. Rip out insurance while you're at it. Because without the item properties, insurance would not have been necessary. Back on the advertising thing, though, being in the magazine business as I am, you know what? Every game that I've ever played has been one that I've seen a 2-page fold in. Compute Magazine, Computer Gamer Magazine, any of the magazines that you pull off the shelves and you open up and you see a huge spread for a brand new game that's coming out. Ultima Online, back in 96, it may have even been 95, they started advertising. And it was a 2 or 3 page spread about, screenshots and stuff like that. That got me to log in, request the CD for the beta. I got my beta in a white envelope, or a white cardboard envelope, and installed it and waited. Back then it was a huge install and a very long download, because back then we were all on 56K. Downloading, I think back then it was 9 megs of MUL files. That was the draw. You see these games though, and as I think it was Aaron or it was Cat Hat, I can't remember which one, alluded to when he was asked, why don't you advertise? Well, it doesn't draw new players in. It does draw new players in. It's huge market. People still grab the magazines off the stands. I'm sorry, they still do. In my opinion, yes. They draw new players in. New players are coming in. Unfortunately, they're coming into the system where, here you go, have anything you want. You're going to be thrown on Trammel initially, which is a bad mistake in my opinion. Bad. Put Haven on Feluca. Don't make it so they're killable. Make it a guard zone, but make it very clear when you leave Haven, you're out on your own. Make it a hostile world for them right off the bat. Making it the Care Bear world right off the bat is what is... what's the word I'm looking for? Creating these people that we have right now in the UO community. Go ahead, Vice.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And Joe Pan was pointing out, in Feluca it's called Oclo or Ocello or whatever they call him. But the whole thing is this, and this is something I pointed out over on a forum recently, and Oclo or whatever. But anyways, on the old forum, believe it or not, I was actually going around on the internet, and I found an old forum which had previous developers from Ultima Online discussing Ultima Online and looking in hindsight as to some of the things they could have done differently with Ultima Online, and Trammel was one of them, believe it or not. They wish they had maybe approached the Trammel aspect a little bit differently rather than just create a duplicate facet, that's just, a Care Bear land. The only problem I see, today, and here's something that bothered me, and it was actually pointed out. Whenever they came out with the newbie guide, or the newbie intro, whenever you create a new character, you log in the game and you create a new character. If you go in this little guided tour of the new character, nowhere in that guided tour are you ever shown anything about Felucca. You're always shown nothing but Malice and Trammel. And believe it or not, a lot of people went around and over on the boards and pointed that out to Niobe, the designers that created it. And guess what? They turned a deaf ear to that. They said, yeah, we know about it, but we just couldn't fit it in. That's BS. You couldn't fit it in, yet you could fit in all this other useless crap like Umbra and everything else. BS.
I agree. And I also saw that, they pointed out, like, the new stuff, like the library contributions and the zoo contributions during that. Go ahead, Sarah Swift. You're up next.
I just want to correct Vice's quote there. She didn't say that they couldn't fit it in. They said that they wanted to put it in, but there's nowhere that they could do where there would reliably be people around on any shard.
When you say reliably be around, what do you mean, though? I mean, we don't have companions anymore. We don't have seers. We don't have any of those people. So when they say reliably around to help, what are you talking about? The GMs? Sarah, go ahead.
No, not to help, like players being around for them to see during the guided tour.
See, in my opinion, that's just wrong, because they definitely need to point out the Felucca points of view when it comes to this stuff. Give them some exposure to it. It's ridiculous that you introduce a new player to the game and throw them into Trammel. Say, here you go, you're completely safe. We're going to throw you in Haven, as a matter of fact, and you're going to be safe as a kitten. It embeds that thought into their head right off the bat, and that is the reason we have U-Haul, for example, crowd that we do. Most of them are sitting there going, I want challenge, I want challenge, I want challenge. And then when you mention the fact of removing insurance, for example, within seconds you have 30 replies coming back going, no, don't remove insurance, don't remove insurance. That's what we're tossing these people into. We need to advertise a game that is challenging and not tossing them into a daycare center right off the bat. Go ahead, Vice, your thoughts.
Well, a lot of people say, well, there's just no really common ground or common place to, basically show where players hang out in Felucca. Well, if you want a common place in Felucca where you'll find people, go to U-Gate. I guarantee you'll find some people.
That's just wrong in itself, and that's why I can't wait till this next, what are they going to call it? Arc comes out for the new EM stuff or canned stuff that comes out as far as things that are going to go on the shards for the next, what is it that Aaron said? Almost a year. Hopefully, this will encompass all of that, and it will take place on both facets, not just Trammel, but also Felucca. Oh, go ahead, Vice.
Well, another thing I want to touch in on is, just the U-Gate alone. If you go over there on just about any chart, you're going to find people over there at all hours of the day. But, let's face it as well, PvP is on its way out because of the simple fact there's a lot of problems with PvP, which is what the developers are trying to address at this moment in time and everything. And quite frankly, prior to AOS and everything, you had a lot more people PvP, player versus player, so that way doesn't sound like an M or anything else. But player versus player, you had a lot more people participating in player versus player prior to AOS because simply everybody was able to get in it real quick. Whereas nowadays, it's pretty much all about the properties, and all the high-end property items are really high-end dollar or high-end gold items, that you have to spend a lot of gold and everything on just in order to acquire. So, not only do you spend a lot more time acquiring these items, but you're also spending a lot more gold to acquire these items. And a lot of players just don't have that kind of gold supply to go spending on a good competitive suit like they did prior to AOS. How would they address the AOS if they were to, what would they do with all the existing artifacts and everything if they were to strip the item properties? My answer to that is simply give all the high-end artifacts, the equivalent of a vanquishing weapon, maybe eminently accurate vanquishing weapon, and that ought to satisfy them because, everybody will have the same high-end weapon, putting everybody on a level playing field until those weapons break. And eventually they'll break and they'll get out of circulation, and then it'll stabilize over time. And it's a lot better solution than what EA is proposing, in my honest opinion. And it's something I would really like EA to consider when it comes to the whole balancing issue of PvP, because not only are you going to have to balance PvP, but you're also going to have to balance PvM. So that's something I think they really seriously need to take in consideration. And then you will see more people at the U-Gate. You will see more people in Feluca, period. And, and another thing about that guided tour is that they could have also shown some of the player-run cities depending on whatever shard you were on. I know on Chesapeake, for example, we got a player-run city that's been there for about almost 7 years now, 7 or 8 years now. And that city's known as Paxlayer. So they could show many different various aspects of gameplay, and not simply. And another thing is they want to show off places that have players. Well, guess what? Umbra does not have players hanging about. So if that's the basis of their argument, then why is Umbra in there? Because Umbra is just dead as they come. If you want to be honestly truthful about that. Also, I'm kind of curious, I've never quite done this, but I'm curious if they got a guided tour system on Siege Perilous, and if so, how's that guided tour any different than any of the other shards? With the exception that, Siege Perilous is, a Felucan only rule set and everything. Is it a different guided tour, or do they not have a guided tour at all for Siege Perilous, or what? Also, if they were to strip item properties from the game, it also fix a lot of the issues over on Siege Perilous, and that would also, in my opinion, revitalize Siege Perilous. So, I think that's really the right step in which they need to go in to revitalize PvP, period. Because, that would open it up to so many different people that where so many different people would actually have a viable chance of getting out there and giving it a try. And that's my argument.
Good point. And by the way, there is no difference between a new player being introduced to Siege Perilous or to the production shards. Once again, Siege Perilous has, it gets the drip down or the trickle down from the production shards. So, unfortunately, the people who do that. The good thing is that they still have to renounce their news or their whatever you want to call it, young player status, before they're allowed to come to Siege Perilous. Unfortunately, there are many people who sit and wait on the production shards and go, come to Siege Perilous. We love to have them there, but they're not ready for it. And I don't want them to play on the production shards. I don't want them to land on Haven. That just drives me out of my mind. Haven, Trinsic, what's the other one? Jalome, I think they come on. All of them. That's where they're landing. And immediately people are there. And they're telling them, here you go. Insure this, insure that. Here, let me give you this. Let me give you $10K in cash. Put that in your bank. Cash it out. You're set. You're good for a good 30 days in UO now. Enjoy it. And that drives me crazy. There's people that are coming into this game that are word of mouth. And, like, for example, my friends came in. I had 3 friends in the last month come into UO, for example, based on my advertising, not magazines or whatever we were talking about earlier. But I had 3 friends come in. They didn't tell me they were going to join. I just mentioned it to them, and they said, okay, great, we're going to come try it out. So they come try it out, and it was like 2 weeks later, they sent me a message going, you know what, this really bites. You know what, I have to sit here, and I had to look up I had to Google, that's what they did. I had to Google a script to get my skill up here. This isn't worth it. I'm going to go off. There's no challenge. And I went, where are you playing on? And one was on Atlantic. One was suggested, because they suggest a shard based on ping. Pacific, Atlantic, and in Sonoma. The third one was on Sonoma, and I'm like, why don't you just come over to Siege Perilous? It's all Feluca rule set. So he comes over, and he plays for like 2 weeks and has a blast training skills, because he got killed endlessly. I mean, he was killed every 3 minutes. The guy's a smartass, he gets killed. Anyways, to go on with my ramble, the bottom line was, he quit too. Because he goes, you know what, it really sucks to go to the bank, to bank what you just stole from somebody, and have somebody sick a chicken on you, and then call the guards. And he's like, this is just not a game. This is the good guys always win game. So he went away as well, and the other 2 disappeared. They got bored of the autoplay game. Viceroy, go ahead.
Yep, I totally agree and everything. And what I don't understand for the life of me is why whenever you create a new character, you don't ever have the option of even starting out in Feluca. It's always starting out in Trammel. I mean, so never do you once ever even introduce or even suggest or hint to players, to my knowledge, even that Feluca's even there. So, I mean, a lot of players, may not even ever even know about Feluca. So, I mean, there's no description. There's no description of Feluca. There's nothing to really allude to the mere existence of a Feluca facet. I think they really need to educate players or new players about Feluca. And if they don't do it in the guided tour, they sure don't do it at the gate menu system. Whenever you go to the public moon gate. So where are they supposed to learn about Feluca? Are they supposed to go out to Feluca and not know about it, and then go out there and get slaughtered, and then say, well, I don't want to go back there again? Because, I mean, that's the first inception. I mean, they're not even prepared when they even click on Palooka. They're like, oh, a facet, you know, or a different option. So, I mean, and I think Palooka's at the top. Let's just say, and most people start out at the top and work their way downwards. So Palooka's at the top. No description, nothing to warn them that, you know, they're about to step out into a territory where they're just going to get slaughtered or have the possibility of getting slaughtered. And so they're not even prepared. They're not even aware. They step out there, you know, and get ganked. And that's their first impression of Palooka. Because, I mean, they've never anywhere been educated about Palooka. A new player. We're talking about a entirely new player. You know, how are they supposed to know about that? Don't teach them in the guided tour. You don't teach them at the gate. You don't teach them anywhere. And I think that's where EA is doing a big disservice to the players of Palooka, those who play in Palooka, because you're never bringing in new blood. All you got is the existing and old blood, or the ones that, you know, have friends that have already previously, you know, invited people over from other games that, you know, are into combat, you know, and they know what to pretty much expect, unless a friend tells them or something. But let's just say I don't have a friend that I know of that plays Ultima Online already. I'm just a new gamer. I read about it. I found it at the store. I saw it online. I thought it was a cheap game. And, you know, and I was like, wow, you know, that's within my budget. I'm going to give it a try. And the first thing I do, I create a new character. I go, I'm wandering around. I find this public moon gate. I step into it. And Palooka's at the top. And I put a check mark in it. And then I, you know, select the town in which I want to go to. I go to U. Ooh, okay. And step out. You know, start wandering around again. And guess what? First thing, slaughtered. Good impression to leave on a newbie, huh? Nope. Exactly.
Good point. Exactly. And that is exactly my point. People log in for the first time, and people I've referred, they log in, and they are given no choice but to go to, you know, Care Bear Land. I hate to make fun of Trammel. I've hung out on Trammel myself. I am guilty of it, absolutely. I love walking around, being able to, you know, have no fear. But it sucks. I feel for the people who come over, are told to renounce their young status, then taken over to Palooka, dry looted for their newbie clothes, which means nothing anymore, since after a server reset, they're not blessed anyways. It's all for griefing. So, what is the point of a new person who comes to UO and, you know, they basically paid $13 to EA, because it's going to get debited whether they like it or not. Even with a buddy code, we all know it's going to be $13 debit at the end of the month. How are they supposed to advertise this stuff? Let's go into another real quick topic here. The new puzzles from iKnew. Has anybody done these? I know we have a number of people who have tried them out. Sarah Swift here in the chat with us is definitely on top of it. What do you guys think about this stuff? My opinion, I'm very upset about it. And I will let you guys talk about it first, though, and your opinions on how they're going so far. Go ahead, Sarah.
So far, they've been really fun, in my opinion. But one big problem I have with them is that you never know if you have the right answer to any of their hints or clues, and there are about 5 billion ways everything can be answered. I don't really have a whole lot else to say about that on my own.
Have you enjoyed? Do you enjoy the canned quests versus the EM quests? That would be my question right there. Go ahead, Viceroy.
Actually, whenever I think of the new quest, whatever you call her, I personally don't ever even go play those, and here's why. It's pretty much already predetermined. I mean, at the end of the day, the quest, the outline or the course of the quest, it's already predetermined. Yes, it's fun for those who like a predetermined quest. I don't like anything that is predetermined for me. I don't like anything that is, that has an end to it. Or something that's one track. And that's what all these quests are. Same thing goes for EM events. They're one track. They're already predetermined. You go out and find all these clues, but at the end of the day, it all leads to the same thing. What I think would be more interesting than anything else when it comes to quest systems and, EM created quests or EA created quests, whoever makes it. I don't care who makes it. But I want to have the players have more control on the outcome of the quest. For example, and here's an example. Have you, by any chance, ever sat back and read a book, one of them choose-your-own-adventure books? I have, and they are very fun to read, and here's why. Because when you're reading the book, you start out on a few pages, and as you further go on into the pages and everything, you're given options as to what the outcome is of the story. So, for example, you come across, and so-and-so comes across, a rat across the road. Do you scream and run, or do you go and kill it? And if you want to kill it, you turn to page so-and-so. If you want to scream and run, you go to page so-and-so. Okay, well then that takes you to the next part of the quest. Now what they could do is simply make the quest system more like a choose-your-own-adventure, which is determined by the outcome and the choices of the players who are participating in the quest. For example, if X amount of players choose to go this way or go this route in the quest, well then the next scenario is going to go in that direction. Based on the majority. If the number of people choose to go this way with the quest, well then then the quest goes that way. It has so many different variables. It has so many different potential outcomes, and that's actually more exciting to me rather than having something that is already predetermined. I like to allow the players to have more control as to what direction a quest goes in rather than being predetermined. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I remember those books. Those books were hysterical. The Dungeons and Dragons series, as a matter of fact, you were able to turn to page 14 if you choose this decision. As far as the canned quests, as I like to call them, they're great, but basically all they are, at the end of the day, a peerless quest. It's a peerless dungeon. Bring back the EMs who will come out and yes, you're right, Vice. They have a what's the word I'm looking for? They have a solution in the end, but they will still come out and rally on the troops or whatever, so to speak, in the middle of such a battle. We need the interaction. We need the seers, we need the EMs, and we need the companions. Sarah, go ahead.
I just lost my train of thought.
Ruh-roh. Go ahead, Vice.
Well, that's great and all that you have, players or, basically seers, which is basically players who are contracted by EA. The only thing is that, it's interesting. Don't get me wrong, the storylines are interesting. I just don't care to participate in it. Because, like I said, at the end of the day, it's predetermined. And quite frankly, I would much rather, them to be on the same par, them being able to, die with us or go into combat with us and fight with us, or fight alongside us. I don't like it whenever, a EM or a seer appears and then all of a sudden disappears or whatever else. I mean, I like to have more of a role. If I'm going to have a leader that rallies me on to do something, I want him to be very well into combat with me, if he dies, well, then our leader's fallen, and then that has more immersiveness. But, if let's just say Lady Dawn or whatever, I don't know who's the leader of the Royal Britannian Guards. I think it's Dupre or whatever. But, if Dupre is going to rally me onto combat, well, then at least, let him to come to combat with me, I want him to participate. I mean, I want him to be there to help me slay the monsters or whatever. That would be more interesting than, say, a call to arms and then just vanish. That's not exciting. I want somebody who's going to be there and actually rally the folks and actually be at my side there with me. That's my take.
Well, I think it all depends on our EMs. I know that Jade over on Sonoma does a great job. She got diseased, was about to die, feigned dying, and then as her alternate, Masera would go into battle with everybody. On the other hand, I've seen on Pacific where, I can't remember the EM's name. Oh, it's on the top of my tongue. But anyways, they kind of launch it and just disappear, like you said, and go away. I think it all depends on the event moderator. Go ahead, Alex. Your thoughts.
I just want to say that I can remember the exact day I lost my faith in the UOQuick. And that day was the day before Renaissance came out. Because that morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, in music, on the 6th day, with the entire Great Lakes Shard there, and yet somehow we still lost and we got trampled. I just lost my faith in Quest at that point.
Yeah, the Quest, in general, that's the reason I don't like that stuff. I don't want the canned quests. I want people to come back and lead us. The same thing goes for, like you look at Stratix, you got some bad moderators, you got some good moderators, you got some great admins, you got some bad admins. In my opinion, you have to have faith as far as the EMs go. Hopefully you're on Shard where there's a really good event moderator so they can keep these things going. Because, I'm sorry, in my opinion, live audience is the way to go. Live, people sitting there on the fly, typing, come on troops, let's go kill this dragon. Not just, there's a mysterious gate on top of the guild tower that's been there for 10 years. Go check it out. That's not the way to go. Hold on a minute while I drag Sandman in here. Alright, Sarah, go ahead.
I got my train of thought back a little bit. The EM events are definitely great in the sense that you have the interaction, you have the person that's there, but they're lacking in the sense that not everybody can get involved in those. You have a lot of issues where people aren't around at the same time as everybody else. There are people who play odd hours, play during when everybody else is working, or play really late at night, or right after server up. For those people, the things like the Corona event are great because they get to be involved without needing to worry about what time they're on.
Oh, absolutely, and I agree with you 100%. In my opinion, it shouldn't be a either-or thing. It should be a, in addition to, let's have additional spontaneous, there's the word I was looking for earlier, spontaneous content thrown into the game. I want to be running up Brit Road towards the Chaos Shrine as a red, and all of a sudden, in the middle, in front of me, I see like 3 ancient worms, and I want to have to figure that out. Spontaneous content. That is what we're looking for. And that is what you're talking about. We shouldn't have to, as far as EM events go, those are fun. Those are a blast. But to rely on those is one thing. For the people like you said, who cannot log in, I have a lot of friends that are over in Europe right now that can't log in during the same times that we can. Those are great for them. So that's what I think. But now I can go on for hours. Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call here. I've been playing Ultima Online since it started, basically. And back when we started, just like we were thrown out there, and you just had to figure everything out. And it was really hard. If you gave up, you gave up, and that was it. But for new players that are coming into the game now, they have to stick with it. They do need someone out there to help them out, and I think that's where EA is actually dropping the ball. They do need to have a system that helps these people along. Just not just a quest type system, but they used to have it where we had the counselors, and that got all screwed up. Because you could actually call someone in, and they'd send someone in from another shard even to actually help you out and get you going in the right direction as a newbie-type character or person. And I really miss those times, but apparently because of the workman's comp or whatever it was, or some legal issues, they stopped doing that. If I was actually working at EA Games, I'd try and get it set up to where, in order to be a counselor, you have to buy the game. In other words, you're buying into it, and that way you're not looking to be paid. You buy the kit, and so you get set up, and that way the counselors could actually come back. I think if the counselors were back in there helping a lot, and if you saw the GMs actually show up in the red robes a lot more, this would really help the game system all the way around.
I agree. Unfortunately, the GMs are, as it's been admitted to, are not spread out through just UO. They're also moderating Sims Online, you name whatever EA game there is. Basically, EA's got their own in-source thing for all their games. I think you can play Tiger Woods online too. I haven't tried online yet. I'm too embarrassed to, because I play worse in the game than I do in real life on the golf course. But I think you can play there too and page a GM. And if I recall, a friend of mine said he got the same GM he got from Atlantic in the Tiger Woods game. I could be wrong. Anyways, go ahead, Viceroy.
Yes, I wanted to comment about the whole the captain of the Royal Guards and everything. Last week, I think, or the last show in which we didn't do a show last week, but the week before, I think we was talking about political structure or about the economy and stuff. And, how we could actually, turn it into something more, like politics and stuff like that. Why can we not simply, allow something like a political structure to where people can elect their own, captain of the Royal Guards or whatever, And it's kind of, I don't know how many of you here with me in this channel have actually been in factions or a faction commander or anything of that nature. But if you know faction commanders, they are kind of like the captain. And they basically have a special ability to broadcast a message to everyone in their factions every so often. Like, I think it's every 1 hour or something like that. But they're actually able to send out a broadcast out to everyone in factions. Now, why can we not apply something similar, a concept similar to the way we do with the faction commander, to where the faction commander, or should in this case the captain of the Royal Guards would in essence be much similar to that of a faction commander who could make a broadcast once every hour. Why can we not have something like that? Why can we not elect our own captain of the Royal Guards? Because think about it. You receive word that there's a threat out there, or you catch wind that there's something going on. You rally the troops, and you actually have a player rally the troops. You have a player there who's the captain of the Royal Guards, and somebody that has the respect of the players, or the majority of the players, and you can go from there. Why not have something similar to that? You basically take it out of the hands of the EMs or the Seers or whatever you want to call them, or EA, and you put it in the hands of players and let them make what they want of it. Because then, the player can actually be there fighting alongside with, all the guards below him, and he could actually rally the troops and stuff like that. That would actually create more immersion, because then you can, every so often, every 2 weeks, I think it is, in faction, you elect a new commander. Same thing, I'm not sure how often they do arcs or whatever else, but depending if they do 1 arc a month or whatever, or 2 arcs, whatever, or scenarios or quests, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what they call them. I think it's arcs, quests, or something. But if they do 1 every month or 1 every 2 weeks, then you can base, the elections on that for a time period. If they only do 1 quest a month, well then you can have 1 election every month. That way everybody can pretty much have a chance at possibly becoming the captain of the Royal Guards. And that's something to think about.
Well, I know firsthand what EMs are paid. I'm not going to spit it out there, of course. I didn't sign an NDA or anything, but I'm not going to say it. But they are paid a pitiful amount of money, and I wish they were paid more so that we could do these and keep them on full-time EMs. You're paying people to GM, which is basically just technical support. For EMs, they're entertainment support. ET, get them on monthly and keep them year-round. None of this contract crap, because they're subcontractors. That's all they are. They're subcontractors, and it bites, because right now they're sitting there still waiting for the contracts to come through, and yet they haven't heard a peep from anybody as to is there going to be another arc? And yes, it's arc, by the way. And the arcs are, 2 weeks long? Or maybe a month if we're lucky, of events that pop up on a Tuesday night at 10 p.m. when people have to get up for work the next morning. And these people put a lot of work into it. I mean a lot of work. The EMs, that is. Only to have the bank sitters who don't have to go to work the next morning because they're grade school to 16 years old, standing there at the end going, gimme, 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 gimme. what's the point? I say put them on full-time. Full-time, make them employees. Granted, they can't be on premises, but give them the opportunity. Don't replace them with the canned events. Go ahead, Sandman.
Yeah, the basics of getting people into this game is having something happening. And these people that are putting these events together, again, it's, like you said, a Tuesday night at 10 p.m., my goodness, I got to get up at 4 in the morning, and then there's no way I can get into that, and I want to play too. And you're right, it's not going to be any fun for those guys if they have a bunch of people standing around begging for stuff. But when it comes down to contracts, EA's got to get their stuff together. They got to not only get this one together for this year, but they got to already start planning for next year. You can't wait until it's up and say, okay, now let's start doing it. You have to have it already set and ready to, at midnight when that thing kicks off, it kicks off at 12:01 with a new contract or whatever they're doing. They cannot wait. And I don't know how we can drill it into their heads, so they have to work on that. I can go over to their headquarters. They're only 20 miles from me here and stand in line and try and talk to them, but are they going to listen? I don't know. It seems like we got a pretty good program manager now. Maybe he can drive it in the right direction. And I guess, Viceroy, I guess you're going to be doing a good talk with him pretty soon. Maybe that can be one of your number one questions is with him, is how to get things going where everybody's having more fun and this game actually starts rolling like it used to.
I agree, 100%. Yes, and it needs to be done on a regional basis. I know that the GMs, or the EMs, basically they just roll together these events. They're given a scenario, and they have to RP on it. And these people come up with RP reasons based on their characters. On Sonoma, for example, it's Jade, who is a sheep herder, gathers together the Britannia Guard. And she does a really, really good job of taking care of that. Unfortunately, it takes forever to get this stuff together, get the RP together, and then you just can't please it. You can't please anybody because, once again, we're back on the it's all about items thing. So, at the end of the night, after a stupid, here we threw you into a mob full of monsters, you killed them all, and then they come back and go, okay, we killed them all, now give me. Go ahead, Vice.
Yeah, I have to totally agree with you. It's too much of a gimme attitude in this game, and that's what really sickens me at the end of the day. And quite frankly, there's only so many items you can give before you can't really give them anything else that's unique or in any way different from anything else. All you can do at that point is just rehue an item and rename an item, and it's like, is that all there is to it? I mean, come on. It shouldn't be all about gimme. It should be more about the attitude, just the sense of accomplishment rather than, is there a reward in it for me or, what's in it for me, It shouldn't be about that. And that's what the game's turned into. What is it for me? Why should I go participate? Stuff like that. And another thing about the whole EM event going, or event moderators going full-time, I don't think that's feasible because, if they were to go full-time, I would think they would have to have them in the office to make sure they're doing their 40 hours of work because that's what full-time is. And they would actually have to have somebody supervise them, make sure they're working, not goofing off and doing something else. Because, I don't think you can really contract somebody full-time and let them work from home. Without really getting your money's worth, and I think EA would want to get their money's worth. Because if that was the case, they'd let the game masters work from home if that was the case. Because they're not really much. In a lot of ways, they're not really a lot different than in my opinion, than the event moderators. Yeah, they have a lot more powers, but it still pretty much encompasses the same concept. They help players, or they provide a service to players. They help players in this case rather than create quests. That's the only two differences. And then they have access to account records, and I would imagine stuff like that. But what's to prevent them from working from home? I think so. If they was to go full time, it'd probably have to be EA headquarters.
I agree. I disagree with the work at home thing. Having been worked at home myself, you can be gauged. The event moderators, by the way, from my experience, talking, I have a couple of friends who are EMs. They are moderated pretty heavily as to how much time they're allowed to spend in game on their EM characters, and they're also gauged as to how much time they have spent in game. They have to spend a certain amount of time in the game. So, as far as that goes, yeah, I understand exactly what you're talking about. Yes, they should. I think you're right. Actually, now that I think about it, they should be on site. But at the same time, that makes it more of a corporation, more of a. I hate to say it, but yeah, we're stuck with that stuff. Go ahead, Sarah.
I think Sandman has his light on purpose.
Go ahead, Sandman.
Actually, I clicked it on and off for a second, but I think EA will get their money's worth. It doesn't matter where they're working, whether they're working at home or if they're actually on site. If these guys are producing, and gals are producing, and they're having turnouts and getting things going in all these shards where they're producing these adventures, that's what we need. If it takes them 5 minutes to put it together, and they put on a great show for us, it's just really fantastic, and everybody has a good time. That's what it's all about. If they want to pay them by contract to be doing all this, time, that's fine. But I think it's the results. You want the results more than anything else. You want the people out there planning their adventure and having a good time, and actually saying, "Hey, I can't wait till they do the next one." That's what we're looking for.
In other words, we want people logging in. That's it. And exactly. When you hear that an EM event is going on, or you read it on Stratix, or you read it on whatever UO forum you read, people log in for the EM events because immediately, whether it's, oh great, I need to get myself a sash, or I'm going to go get myself some great PBM, or if you're on Siege like me, and you go, I'm going to go kill everybody on site, you're going to get some fun, and everybody logs in. I've seen people log in on EM event nights when there hasn't, I've seen people who have not logged in for 2 months log in. All of a sudden, they're there for it. So, yes, we love our EMs. We want them back. Go ahead, Sarah.
Kind of threw off my track of what I was going to say, but I'm trying not to jumble up too much. But basically, in my opinion, the best way to keep people logging in, to keep things happening all the time, is give players more control. If you need to let the role players have things that they can do that currently only EA staff can do, things that will let them leave a noticeable impact on the world somehow. Nothing that would give like items with insane item properties and stuff like that, giving advantage to one side or another, or anything that would give advantage to people with bigger numbers. But things like giving names to items or putting historical landmarks down somewhere when something happens, and things that like having NPCs react to what's going on, especially the town criers, being able to say, hey, I've just heard that if it were Catskills, for example, there's a there's a competition going on in the Aegis, for example. That's one of the role-playing towns on Catskills, by the way. And then, as far as towards the EMs and the Royal Guard, that should remain entirely EA controlled. They should have final say for all the base fiction across all shards. That's why I think they should have the EMs doing all the Royal Guard stuff. But EA does need to do a much better job at keeping the flow in between arcs. You know, the 3 months breaks, negotiating contracts in between and everything like that.
Agreed, 100%. There's a lot of stuff that needs to change, but Viceroy, go ahead, you were next.
Yeah, you know, the whole thing about this, you know, giving players more control over, you know, things and such, you know, and that actually just made me think, because I think Sarah Swift said something about monuments or something like that, and I was just thinking, or just, you know, basically leaving a tribute to somebody. Now, I just went back and that made a light bulb go off in my head, and what just came to mind is that, you know, should players ever be able to have some more of a control over, you know, what their city looks like? Because as a matter of fact, Cat Hat over on U-Haul recently posted that there's an ideal, there's an ideal going around about giving players more control over what a city looks like and stuff like that. Now, can you imagine if players can erect monuments and in honor of a player, you know, who's either died in real life or something, you know, because I know there's a tribute to Goodman. I think it was Goodman over on Atlantic a little while back. And I mean, can you just imagine if players were able to erect a monument, which would be like a gold sink, first of all, you know, because, you know, you would have to put money to erect a monument, and then you would have to maintain the monument, and depending on how, you know how much of importance is to the players of, you know, whoever erected that monument, they would basically sink gold back into, you know, the maintenance of certain monuments and stuff like that. I mean, I think that would be a great step into, you know, recognizing various, you know, people who either done a great service to the community or have passed this world and, you know, left this world, or something of that nature, something significant about, you know, something. Because I know there's some games out there like World War II Online that actually allow players to purchase monuments within their game world. And they actually put a little plaque on it and all that reads what the monument is in dedication to. So, I mean, this would be one step in giving people that option to, you know, that players have been, you know, pleading for so long. I mean, this would give them an avenue to pursue in which to accomplish that with. And whether they want to keep up with it or not, it's entirely up to the players. So, I mean, and then the EA wouldn't have really, you know, much. They couldn't be biased in that regards because it's really in the hands of players then. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, you know, I understand, and I've bitched and moaned for years about the memorials and stuff like that, because regardless of what EA says, GMs, EMs, Sears, you name it, have left items around or memorials around, you name it, for numerous players who have passed away in real life for us. And they've made it very clear. EA is not going to allow that to happen. Oh, God, I wish it would, though. Because there are so many people that have left us in real life. And it's hurt. You know, I've got a few stories. Everybody who reads the White Stag forum on Stratix has read my stories about Autumn, who committed suicide, and it sucks. People, I mean, the bottom line is, people in real life are gonna die and are gonna leave us. And it would be nice to have a memorial out there. It would be nice to be able to legally put a memorial out there that you know is going to stand, like the grandfathered stuff or the blessed stuff, like the YMCA in Sonoma is a great example. It's not going to fall ever. There are so many others. Sandman, you've been waiting a while. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, you bet. You know, the memorial idea is actually a great idea, and I don't know why we can't have them pick it up. I don't know if you want to just place memorials anyway, any place in Cesaria, but you might actually, you know, this is going to sound fishy, but that's what the cemetery is for. We might actually want to put those memorials over in the cemetery. Maybe have a cemetery that's not actually haunted, where people can actually go in there and read what's going on you know, click it on and actually read a story about what this person is being glorified for. But I actually wanted to get into something else. You're talking about dragging people into certain areas and how to announce it. I had someone on my radio show actually request a song like 12 hours before my show started. He sent me an ICQ. And so he posted that I was going to play this song for Puffy over in Siege and dedicate it to him. And I'll tell you, my show was just loaded with players from Siege asking, when is it going to be? You know, what song is it? Et cetera, et cetera. And it really developed some excitement. So if EA could post stuff like that on a regular basis about stuff that's going on, and I think there will be a general excitement coming down the pipeline on a regular basis, and people will actually show up for events. And unless it's at midnight, you know, again, if they're doing a 10 o'clock event, and if that's 10 o'clock Eastern, that's still 7 p.m. here. And if it runs 2 hours, it's 9 o'clock. Now, whether people can actually do that on the East Coast, it's up to midnight. And again, you said like in Europe, you know, that's you know, they're getting ready for breakfast at that time. And so they definitely need to work these events where people around the world could actually play in them. But announcing more events, you know, through the Stratix or wherever they can really helps. I'll tell you, it helped my show that night. I've never seen so much action. Go ahead.
I've done the same thing. The Siege shard, by the way, is an East Coast shard, so it's tough to announce stuff over there. Being that Sandman there and I are both on Pacific time, I tend to announce stuff more to Sonoma than I do to Siege, and I wish I didn't otherwise. Vice, go ahead and get your words in there, buddy.
Yep, you know, the thing is, you know, I don't think if we're going to have monuments or allow players to create monuments, I don't think you ought to ever be blessed. What the ideal is that you create or give them the option to create a monument, but they have to also maintain it. And if they don't choose to maintain it, well, then it eventually, you know, collapses or erodes away, you know, over time. You know, this would give players an incentive to keep sinking gold into what they believe in. If they want to keep a monument around for years and years to stand the test of time, well, then guess what? You're going to have to keep that monument up by sinking gold into it. And that's what the ideal is behind the whole monument system. This would give players an avenue to pursue, keep EA out of any illegal mess, because then, you know, EA could say, well, we just simply gave them tools and allow them to make what they wanted of it. And, you know, we're not being biased because we're not giving anybody any preferential treatment or anything like that. And it's pretty much up to the players to who they want to glorify or recognize or anything of that nature. And quite frankly, another thing is, why does everything have to be in the graveyard? It doesn't have to be in the graveyard because not everybody's dead. I mean, if I'm being glorified, let's just say me, for example, if I'm being glorified for something, I'm still alive. I don't want to be in the graveyard.
That's a good point. The statue that they put out, I don't know if this is on all the shards, but on Sonoma, we had a great event, a great one, that the EM set up on Sonoma. That was in the Jalome fighting pits, in which everybody who went in and fought, and it was basically PvP only. It was the only EM event ever set up in prior to Trammell coming over. This is afterwards, but before that, or afterwards, the only event that was ever set up that was PvP only. It was nothing but people fighting. As soon as they died, they were lifted onto the bridge that overlooks the Jalome pit, and everybody who fought was given a t-shirt. I survived, or I died, or whatever, in the Jalome pits, in such and such date. That was an incredible event. Everybody showed up. People were killed outside, of course, but the people who made it in had a blast, and everybody was ghosts. I was allowed down there only as a ghost, only because I was a reporter at the time, but that was a blast, and that was probably the best EM event that has ever occurred. They need to, in my opinion, mix it up. You got all kinds of play styles going on. You got all kinds. I know Sarah, for example, is like, I don't want to go to Fell, so I don't go. That's awesome. I think that the Trammell mindset is a great place to be. But to allow the trickle down, that's what's killing Feluca, Siege, the Japanese shard too. And I'm not going to murder the name, so I'm not even going to try. But to allow these events to go on, with the dragon appearing in Britain, with Inu appearing in the different cities, that sort of thing. Keep them coming, but give us our EMs. Give us our Seers back. Give us our counselors back. I don't care if there's a legality issue or not. That's my opinion. No, I don't care if there's a legality issue. Stop working it out for months on end. Bring back the EMs, bring back the Seers, bring back the counselors. Everybody had fun back then. We're not having fun right now. Go ahead, Sandman, you were next.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. You know, they need to bring these groups of people back. And you know, I think it was one or two people that actually ruined that whole system because they felt as though they should have been paid for it. The EM should be paid, but like the counselors, we had the Counselors Guild, the Seers Guild, and they set up all this cool stuff, and they were actually able to change some stuff around in the counselors' houses. They could actually build things around those things. And talking about, Viper was talking about how they're going to, maybe, this is an idea, of course, make it where the players can control towns and actually put stuff into these buildings. I think that is a fantastic idea, and it's a way of actually moving some gold around. You'll be able to, for instance, if you're running Britain, maybe not run the whole town, but maybe building by building, you got to take it over. And if you're running that one building, you can change the furniture around a little bit, where it's, you know, there's only certain places you can put things, but you can make it look stylish and do your own thing in there. Get your own type of vendors in there that are selling the normal stuff, but they are dressed the way they should be and saying stuff that should be said, and keep things rolling in that way. The idea of having those monuments where you pay maintenance on them is a great idea, but I think again, you can plunk one. You know, there should be certain areas where you can put them. You just can't plunk them down anywhere. But once it's placed, and if it's a good-sized monument, you got to put so much into it each week or each month, however you work it out. I think that's great, and people respect those things. You know, I'm walking around seeing stuff that they have left out for the counselors all over the place in memory of, and I read them. I think it's cool. I remember those days and had a good time with it. I wish they'd actually bring them all back. I'm like you, Spider. They should bring them all back and get past this legal issue. You know, there's got to be something that they can do to make it where they don't have to think the legal part of it. And if they have to buy a game and if act like they're playing a game, that might be the easiest way. They don't have to sign any contract. They buy the game, and they're getting into the game with that box as a counselor or a seer, and then they have that same control they used to have, but they don't have to ask to be paid because they're playing a game. Go on.
No, you're right 100%. They should, it doesn't matter. They're in it to have fun. The EMs spend a lot of time. I mean, a lot of time. As far as contributions go and that sort of thing, I think they should be paid. Seers and counselors, you know what? That's a hands up the kind of thing. Why that ever went to court or why that ever even became an issue is another topic altogether. Bottom line was they agreed to something, and later they turned it around. I was never a counselor, so I have no clue, or a seer, to be honest. Seers and counselors thrive on the Japanese shards, though. The Japanese shards have a website that is outstanding, and here on the U.S. or in Canada, we've got a website that is mediocre at best. Go ahead, Viceroy. I want to hear your opinion on this.
Sure thing. The whole thing is the whole legality issue is not something they could just simply ignore and just say, oh well, we'll just forget about it, and we'll go ahead and do it anyhow. The law is the law, and unfortunately EA is based in the United States, and so therefore if they want to continue doing business in the United States, they have to adhere to U.S. laws. That's not something it's not something they, it's not their choice, it's what the law says, unfortunately. The reason that EA is able to get away with it in Japan and other parts of the world is because EA Japan adheres to Japanese law and not American law. So therefore they're able to successfully carry on with the volunteer program in Japan, whereas they are not able to do so here in the United States, because the law over here in the United States says you can't. But the law over there in Japan allows them to do it because there's not been a precedence in the law or a legal lawsuit that has prevented them from doing it over there in Japan, to my knowledge, as of yet. So unless that was to occur over there, I think this is going to continue to be the case. So my question is, can we actually outsource the EM or the SEER program, the counselor program, and other things over to the UK, the United Kingdom? Can we get people from the United Kingdom to basically work as volunteers? Because hey, those people in the United Kingdom can speak English, they can interact and be our volunteers. They don't have to adhere to the United States law. So if we want to get volunteers, why can we not at least, for the time being, until we can figure out something for the United States, maybe a loophole or something for the United States law, why can we not just simply outsource the volunteer program to the UK? Because I guarantee you, we could probably do that right now. And that's something I'm going to probably bring up with Dark Scribe whenever we have an interview with him. Because, we already outsource our technical support, whenever you call up EA about a product or a game or anything, you get a hold of the people in India. So why can we not use the same concept and basically outsource the work over to people in the UK, or Canada or Australia? Because, EA has offices all over the world in which they could very well outsource the work to. United EA UK or EA Canada, and or EA Germany. I mean, I know they already have a strong presence in Germany, but I'm not sure if they can speak English for the most part. I mean, yeah, the community manager over there, but a lot of Germans are, still, nationalists, so they speak just their language for the most part. So it's really a legal issue, and the question is just how do you go about doing it in a way that's legal, and also at the same time please those who want to see such a program return. So my question to you, Spider-Bite, and everybody here, would you like to see outsourced for the time being to maybe a country like the UK, Canada, or Australia? So I'll let y'all answer that question.
Yes. UK would be awesome. I can think of, immediately off the top of my head, 10 people who would be awesome contributors to the EM program alone, as far as creating diverse and absolutely stunning events. What else? Oh, Jesus. Oh, I can't even I can't start to believe or understand how great it would be to have people from the UK contribute. Blind Otto is a good example. There are so many people from the UK that can contribute. If that was a loophole, I would love to see it happen. Go ahead, Sam, man.
Yeah, I agree with that. If we could pull that loophole up, it would be great. Great Britain, Australia, India. Actually, they don't have to be able to speak English, but if they can write it, that's all we're concerned about. Because when they're in game, helping us out, it's their writing that we're concerned about. And I don't think you can hear an accent. At least I haven't been able to. But if we had to outsource this, that would be great. But again, I still don't see what the problem is. What the word volunteer means volunteer. There shouldn't be anything attached to it. And if someone's got a legal loop that's making it where volunteers can't be volunteers, that's going to mess up the Red Cross. I mean, all these organizations that have volunteers, that's just going to mess up all volunteerism in this country. And I think that's really a bad thing if that's going to go in that direction. And to me, if I was a seer at one time, I got right into the very end of it, was a super apprentice seer, and didn't even get out to do my thing before they shut it off. And I think it's sad. I mean, I wanted to volunteer. I wanted to help, and I wasn't looking for pay. I was willing to do my times that they asked me to do, and it's like I volunteer my time here on UORadio. I have fun with it. I have fun communicating with people that are having the same interests that I have, and I just don't see what the big problem is on that.
Well, the big issue with the EMs is that EMs are paid. They're paid, like I said, $352 a month. As far as volunteers go, seers and counselors, that's a whole other issue altogether. That's where they're running and they're butting their heads in the wall. The EMs, on the other hand, they have to work out a contract with them because they're subcontractors. I'm a subcontractor by trade. So it takes 2 months for me to work out a contract, for example, just to write an article for somebody. You have to take the time to do that. And unfortunately, that's the same way that it works for the EMs. And the EMs are just like, we want to get going. We want to have fun. We want to just go have fun with these people that we play with for 3 months out of the year. And EA is going, well, hold on a minute. We need to make sure that you can't screw us this way, or this way. And it's messing up for the time for the players, in my opinion. That's my opinion, okay? Just for the record. Go ahead, Joe Bam. I've been waiting for a while. Or you fell asleep.
I think she fell asleep. But if I may, I'll go ahead and just wait until she returns. But I wanted to point out that I think what the problem is here is that they are volunteers, and the word volunteer means you work for no pay. And see, that's not the case anymore. They have to subcontract and hire people. EMs are not volunteers anymore either. They are actually paid subcontract employees for Electronic Arts. So the whole word volunteer is out of the question now. The thing is, and as far as Sandman alluded to, how it would probably mess up, the Red Cross and other organizations. The difference between Electronic Arts and the Red Cross is that the Red Cross is an NPO, non-profit organization. Electronic Arts is a for-profit organization. That's the whole two differences, and that's why an NPO can get away with bringing on volunteers and not paying them anything, whereas a for-profit organization such as Electronic Arts cannot get away with it. And I think I need to point out the clear distinction. And a lot of players are saying, bring back the volunteers, bring back the volunteers. Well, there is no volunteers anymore. If they bring back counselors or if they bring back seers, it will be a paid subcontract by Electronic Arts. It will not be a volunteer gig, unless they, of course, outsource it over to Canada or something of that nature. And as far as what country they go with and everything, I would imagine they would go with a country like Canada or Australia, since the cost of living is a lot lower in those regions, because the American dollar to the Australian dollar and the Canadian dollar, it's a lot cheaper to hire folks from Canada and Australia than it is to hire somebody from the UK. So that would be my guess as to what route they would go, and it would probably more than likely be people from Canada, should they look for a loophole, because after all, they would be in North America. So I hope I did make that distinction between NPO and a incorporation or a corporate. Also, I also want to point out the size of monuments. Where would you be able to place these monuments? It would have to be in locations where it wouldn't obstruct, traffic or anything like that, or it wouldn't be in a place where you could possibly place a house. So, in other words, it would probably have to be in a guard zone, or in a region where houses can't be placed, so that way that it doesn't obstruct anything, houses or players from traveling, from place to place. And so I just wanted to point out those things. And based on the size of the monument, should determine the maintenance fee as well.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. The UK is actually probably the best place to go for EM or Sears or counselor people to join in my opinion. Somebody pointed out to me in ICQ that the hours, though, would be different. Well, that you're correct. You're very correct. But, you know what? It doesn't matter, because, again, as Vice pointed out, it's free. They're volunteers. They're not limited by the U.S. here. And those of us who are screwed, basically, because the volunteers and the seers who have helped out over the years can't do it. So, Sandman, go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the fact that maybe there should be some box game that they actually have to order as a seer or a counselor, and they'd actually receive a box set game that's set for those types of characters. And once they connect into the game, they're actually paying to be that. So if it's Your $13 goes to that. You're playing Ultima Online anyways. You actually probably could run characters off that same deal, but you're actually able to connect into it because you paid for this special box. And by you paying to get into that, you're actually playing. So it's not as though you're working. You're playing. You're part of that association of seers and counselors that work together, because it's a group, and there's someone that runs it. There's a head person, and he sets up the schedule. He or she sets up that schedule, and they all try and live by it. And they get the schedule set. It's just like we have our schedule here on UORadio. We set that schedule up, and they try and keep their people active. And if they're paying themselves to be in that, hey, not only are you volunteering, but you're also paying to get into it. And I think that might be a way legally to get around it.
I think that was the idea behind the original SEER program. Unfortunately, it just crashed and burned, and that really sucks, because we do need the SEERs back. I've spoken to enough EMs that I know to realize that when they do an event, they could use the help. They really need the help. And the Sears kicked it off. They had the right idea during the Lord Blackthorn, the invasion during that expansion. And unfortunately, everybody just dropped off after that. It became a gimme kind of game. That's what happened. It became gimme, gimme, gimme. How come these monsters aren't dropping this sort of loot? This is the reason I quit at that point. I quit for a year. 1 year exactly, to be honest. When that happened, when we were watching all this, I watched. We knew what we had to do. We knew we had to collect the brain from this, and we had to do this. There were so many different little components put together by the Seers and the EMs at that point. When it was done, and we couldn't complete it, and most shards couldn't complete it, I broke down and just wanted to cry. I was like, this is ridiculous. There is no reason we should even bother. I quit UO. I quit it for a whole year. When I came back, I went to Siege, only because that's the last step you go before you quit UO altogether. I want to see Seers, I want to see Companions, I want to see Counselors, I want to see all of them come back. Go ahead, Vice.
Well, what I really want to know, what is really the significant difference between an EM and a Seer, other than one had more powers than the others? I mean, really, if you ask me, an EM is almost the equivalent of a Seer. So, I mean, the question is, will they ever actually bring back Seers with the same amount of powers, or will they just simply boost the amount of powers an EM has and basically dub them as the new Seers or whatever? Because, I mean, really, it's the same thing, in my honest opinion. When I look at an EM, I don't really see much of a contrast between that of a EM and a Seer, other than they're limited in what they can do. It's the same thing. I mean, they both made up storylines. They both made up quests for a player to participate in. But the thing is, I think the Seer quest wasn't as limited as the EM events are. I mean, if you notice how the EM events are, they try to keep it very secretive because they don't want a lot of players participating in it. Whereas back in the old days, everybody and their brother knew about a Seer event. I mean, it was like, everybody was there, on the shard, so it seemed. So, I mean, what's the difference between now and then?
I I think the basic difference between the two is that the EMs are, well, of course they're employees of EA, but they have the same, what's the word I'm looking for, abilities as GMs do, although they rely on the GMs to create the scenarios around them. I think they don't have liberal freedom is what I'm guessing. Sandman, go ahead.
Yeah, I always felt as though the EMs always had the greater power over what the Seers could do, because they're actually setting up events, and of course, I never got into the Seers big enough to really realize that. But again, we need these people back, and it does need to be supported by EA. When I became a Seer, EA wasn't really supporting it. It was like we were trying to do this without any help. We were not connected in any way, because it was towards the end when the Seers were actually all dying off. And if they can support it, they're going to have an actual in-house person that supports that 100% from EA itself in order for it to work. And you have heads of each of these groups that work together with that person and work together with the other heads of the other entities. It will actually come back to life, and you'll see something happening really good. And again, I feel as though that since we can't volunteer, if you're actually, if you're paying a cookie for it each month, whatever, we definitely have to have those people back. And anyways, I guess Joe Pam, she just sent me an ICQ and her mic was out, so that's why we didn't hear her. So that's where she's at.
I'm glad to hear that. Before we wrap it up, go ahead, Vice.
The whole thing, and a lot of people are disagreeing with me as to my outlook on the EMs and everything. I personally think they're secretive and everything, and here's why. I just don't feel like me as an average player, nowadays. I used to be a hardcore player, but, there's a lot of things that I'm not quite happy about with the game as of right now, so I'm just an average, typical player. But, the reason I say that I don't feel like they give enough exposure or secretive is because they don't give enough exposure. I think they could really go a lot more longer ways to give exposure. Yeah, town criers, they announce events, but you have to go up to them and say news, and that's the only way you find out about the events or whatever, to my knowledge. So, unless you're out there saying news, or you actually keep an eye on that crystal or whatever that lights up that indicates that the event's about to take place, other than that, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of being notified or even aware of an event taking place. I want to be notified. I want a website indicator, maybe on the website at UO.com or something. Maybe they can have an indicator that's going to tell me, hey, there's going to be an event today, if you want to come participate. No, there's not no huge, great exposure for it. No, the only way you're going to know about it is if you go looking for it. And that's the problem. You shouldn't have to go looking for an event to participate in. You shouldn't have to go looking for it. It should be known about as to, that it's going to be there, and this is when it's going to be, or an ideal time frame. But you don't know about it unless you're absolutely looking for it or somebody tells you about it. So other than that, you don't know about it, and so therefore it is, in my opinion, secretive for that very reason.
See, I'll disagree with you on that. Only because maybe it's just my shard, or one of my shards, I should say. Because we don't get many events on Siege. But we do get events on Sonoma, and Jade tends to make it known to people. She will appear spontaneously in different parts of Britannia, all over the place, and just, hey, what you doing? Follow me. That's the way she is, and I don't think other EMs do that. So, I think it's all about the EMs, and I think maybe this time around, when they interview them and they bring them in, because from what I understand, there are very few EMs that are still around, and we still need EMs on various shards. Maybe they'll look into that. With that said, I'm going to wrap up today's show. I have no clue who's on next, but I think Viceroy is going to take care of that for me. I want to thank everybody today, Viceroy, Alex, Joe Pam, Sarah, especially Sarah Swift, who went out and bought a microphone just for today's interview. I would hope you come on tonight or next week as well. And then Sandman. Everybody have a great week, and we will see you next time.
Yep, you're not going to give everybody a chance to say goodbye, or?
Absolutely I am. Go ahead, Vice. You're first.
Oh, all right. It was great having you all here and everything. I just want to basically point out that, we are not going to be having anybody up next after the talk show or whatever. We are just simply going to be turning it over to Auto DJ because Chris isn't going to be able to make it here with us today for his show. And so, with that said, we're going to be turning it over to the talk show. And what else? Hopefully, we'll be having that interview with Dark Scribe, Aaron, a.k.a. Aaron Cohan, the producer of Ultima Online, here in the next week or two, I would imagine. I'm still waiting back on word on the exact date and time. I do know we have a definite date or interview, a date, set out, as a planned, time frame, but just not a specific date, or time. Be sticking around for that. Hopefully next week we'll be able to tell you more about that, hopefully.
All right, Alex, go ahead. Tell us about yourself and say goodbye.
Well, I'll be here and hopefully listen for it. And I'm Alex from Great Lakes, and I'm going to say goodbye.
Me too. And if Vice will let me on, I'm going to get on the air right after this. Let's see, who do you got? Joe Pam.
Nobody.
Did you fall asleep, honey, or did you hit your head on the desk again?
No, I just had the mic muted. Oops. If you want to help UORadio add some of your shard flavor, join up with the new staff. We need some help. Anyhow, I'm Joe Pam. I'm from Lake Superior and many, many other shards. Thanks for listening.
Can I tell the news?
No.
No, of course not.
Join with us and maybe you can.
I'll make fun of the crafters. I know. Sarah, I've been dying to get you on here forever. So go ahead and say goodbye and say hello to the crowd.
Hey, you'll probably be able to get me back here sometime because gotta make the money I spent in the microphone worthwhile somehow. So long.
Yes, I will be inviting you back many times. Trust me. Sandman, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to thank you for having me on the show here. This is the one and only Sandman. And I am on Monday through Friday night, everybody. Come in and listen, get on the IRC with me, and have some fun. Definitely. And, hey, this has been a great show. I really appreciate it.
All right. If I can work my way on here, I'm going to go ahead and go on the air and do my show here. So I want to thank everybody. You guys have a great evening. We will see you next week. Remember, Saturday is our guild interview. This week, or upcoming week, it's this week, is VMP from Multi Shards. We have 3 different shards of VMP, Vampiric Embrace, joining us. And then, of course, on Sunday, the typical talk show. So, we hope you'll join us then. In the meantime, hopefully you get to listen to me in a second.
Yep. Anyhow, this is going to go ahead and conclude episode number 34, the big 34, right here on April 23rd, 2006. And thank you once again. And I'm going to go ahead and let Spider on it here in a minute. And he's going to be going and getting ready for all that. So, we'll see you next week on Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Take care.